Stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. There we go. This is Select Board Chair Josh Levine. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Gold.
Here.
Dan Zwerko.
Here.
Tom Lacusa.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons.
Here.
Mike Barbieri.
Here.
This open meeting of Long Meadow Select Board is being conducted in person with a remote option available to the public consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. This meeting will feature resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please fill out the public comment form given upon arrival to the meeting. I will call on residents in the order in which the forms are received. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, members of the public are attendees. If a member of the public would like to speak during resident comment, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. All right. First, we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. For Select Board announcements.
Oh, I'd like to, could I have a minute?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to move something on the agenda. We're going to vote on the date of the special election. If we voted on that first, then you could announce it.
We're not voting on the date, we're voting on the warrant.
Oh, I thought I thought it said the date of the special election was in the announcements. Am I mistaken?
The special town, yeah, I'm about to announce the town election date.
But,
We already set the schedule.
oh, okay, all right. Maybe I'm mistaken then.
The warrant for the election has to be set, has to be signed and
That's it.
set 7 days in advance, so that's just
All right.
procedurally what's happening.
Okay, I guess I thought it was for the special election of March 7th, but we're voting on the warrant. Okay.
Yeah, we set the date.
All right, sorry. They're the same date though, or they're close, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's the same date.
Okay, all right, that's why I'm sorry.
If you have any questions after this, we'll address.
Okay.
The special town election will be held on Tuesday, March 7th at the Long Meadow Community House. Polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. The deadline to register to vote at the election, if you are not already registered to vote in town, is February 25th, 2023. For more information on the special election calendar and other important dates, please visit www.longmeadowma.gov/elections. Cooley Brook. The town is hiring the Conway School of Landscape Design to develop conceptual designs for the ecological enhancement of Cooley Brook in Bliss and Laurel Parks. The Select Board is accepting applications for a resident advisor to serve on the core team that will advise the student group. If you are interested in providing your perspective on the restoring Cooley Brook, please submit your application online via the form linked on the community page of the town's website or visiting longmeadowma.gov/Cooley Brook. No technical expertise is required. Applications are due March 10th and candidates should expect to be interviewed at the March 20th Select Board meeting. Okay, do we have any resident comments, Mike?
Just a reminder, if you'd like to make resident comment and you're in the chat, you can press the raise hand icon. I don't believe we have any.
Okay, if we have any Select Board comments. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a few. I attended the Scantic Valley Health Trust meeting this past month, and the good news is that they voted on their rates for the next fiscal year, actually, I think for the calendar year, but Scannick Valley rates will be going up 2%. That's medical insurance rates, 2%. So as anybody who knows anything about what's going on in the economy, that's just phenomenal. It's good news for the town and the town's budget, and it's good news for the employees and the employees' budgets, since the employees pay half of their medical benefits. I think it's a testimony to the value of Scannick Valley Health Trust for the town, rather than anything else we might use. We've got our own, it's under a local control, it's got great systems, and this is, again, across the board, I think, for all their programs. So it's really great that they've been able to do that. And I know Lynn has already put that in the budget. So I want to thank the Long Meadow Police Department for helping to resolve and solve the bank robbery at Berkshire Bank. I think it's a testimony to the hard work of our Long Meadow Police Department and Detective Bureau. I know of a couple of bank robberies in town since I've been on the select board, and they've all been solved, so congratulations to them. One thing to note, every year we talk about our tax rates, and people get concerned that Long Meadow has the highest tax rates in the Commonwealth, and I'm very quick to tell people that, yes, but we have the 46th highest average tax bill in the Commonwealth, and that's put out by the Department of Local Services in their evaluation of it. Well, I'm happy to announce that for 2023, we've dropped from 46th highest to 50th highest. So we've dropped down 4 places. What that really means is that we're holding our increase in taxes more reasonable than other towns that don't have some of the constraints that Long Meadow has, but other towns, their taxes are moving up. And I know it's still nothing great to say you're 50th out of 351, but we're not the highest average tax rates in the Commonwealth, and people should know that. One other thing before I have just a couple of comments. At the last meeting, I didn't comment on the Mass Municipal Association meeting that several of us went to in January, and I wanted to just make a couple of comments. One is Tom and I were both at a workshop on electrical vehicle charging, and afterwards we went up and talked to one of the speakers, and we were kind of talking about how our rates aren't doing so well in Long Meadow for electrical vehicle charging, and her comments were, "Oh, you're Eversource, so you've got real problems." And she offered to help. She's actually sent me an email. I talked to Lynn about it, but frankly, I think she's part of the Department of Transportation and some of the other groups. They understand that electrical vehicle charging in Western Massachusetts is a particular issue because of the what they're called the tariffs for electrical vehicles and peak pricing from Eversource. So I think it kind of confirmed for me, I hope for you, Tom, too, that what we did unfortunately made some sense based on where it was. I also went to a workshop on something called municipal energy aggregation. Hopefully, I'm going to bring this up as we move toward the future and here. It's a real great system that the town can do a lot of work for the residents by literally arranging to buy electricity. I think we all get in the mail these things, buy your electricity from us, and what people don't, or some people don't realize, is electricity consists of 2 components. One is delivery and one is generation, and all they can work on is the generation part, and they're right now split about 50-50, and they generally offer you 5% or 8% or something reduction in the generation part, but so your overall bill goes down a lot less. But this municipal energy aggregation really allows the town to purchase the electricity for the whole community. It's something in Massachusetts. It's been done in many communities. They were talking about how wonderful it is, and instead of 5%, it's a 25, 40, 50% reduction in generation costs, and it locks in costs. And so one of the beauties that the town of Reading was talking about was that we're Eversource, or the municipal electrical suppliers, by state law, by the Department of Energy and Department of Public Utilities, they have to bid their price for buying electricity twice a year. So everybody knows that our electric prices went up in January, and they'll probably go down in July, because every January, every July, they have to go out and rebid their supply. A town under the municipal aggregation can actually do 5 years' worth of bidding, and Reading was saying, yeah, I know Russia attacked Ukraine and prices went up, but our folks didn't see a thing, 'cause our prices still stayed 30% below everything. You know, it's that kind of thing. So it's a lot of work. It's not something you can do right away, but I think it was worth mentioning, and certainly something, Josh, I'll talk to you, I've talked to Lynn about it already, that we may want to look at potentially offering for the town, no guarantees. Also, there was a big discussion about the diversity equity committee, DEI committee that the Mass Municipal Association has. I got the names of some great resources that perhaps our DEA committee in town can contact Deborah Roberts, and they may be really, really great contact. And finally, the Mass Select Board Association meeting, they spent 40 minutes discussing the flag policies in town based on the Supreme Court ruling, and that's something we've already dealt with, and basically their advice was you have to do what Long Meadow already did. So I think it's great to see that.
Yeah, you should have led that one.
We were way out ahead, and in fact, there was something in the paper yesterday, I think, that now Chicopee's looking to revise their municipal, so it was good to see those things, so we are ahead of those. Finally, I just wanted to note that, Josh, at the beginning of this meeting, you read that little speech that we've been doing for 2.5 years, but the remote participation is going to end by state law on March 31st, and I'd like to suggest that at our next board meeting, we consider locally extending it under the rules we're allowed to, which means that, you know, outside people like Eversource or petitioners or maybe town employees can give their reports remotely. I think it would be great to do that, and maybe if, you know, less than a majority of the select board has to be home or out or something, they can also participate. It does require a majority of the board, requires the chair to be here, but it's something we might want to consider putting on the agenda next meeting, because after that, we turn back into pumpkins.
I think absolutely on that last point. I know that Lynn has said it is, when hiring people, it is a benefit that they don't have to live locally, they can be remote and they can come in, they don't have to stay here until 9 at night, so it's a big boon to us to do that. And I just want to comment on EV. Eversource has done their EV tariff filing with DPU. It is the densest thing. I can't get hide nor hair of it, but I have reached out to Eversource to try to find out what the goal, what they're planning there, because we have to get that thing moving, but you know, as we've said from the beginning, have to make it a fair price and have it make sense for everyone. But I need Eversource to parse that out for me, and it is disconcerting to hear that Eversource is looked down on that front, at least around the state.
I'm glad Tom was there, because he can verify.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Because it sounded like it was going to take a state coalition to get Eversource to give us a rate that could really help us with our electrical vehicle chargers. There was if I could just continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was a great workshop. One of the things that they talked about as far as the town using more electrical vehicles, is they said, you have to make sure there's areas to charge vehicles on the other end of the town, because sometimes you'll use a vehicle and then, like, you know, it needs to be charged up, and so we have to have places the town could, you know. So I know we have a few electrical vehicles, but it was great. They had a person from the DPW, I can't remember.
Concord.
What, Concord?
He was in Concord, yeah.
From Concord, and he was saying how some of these things sound great. Like he said, electric lawnmowers, he says, is perfect. You know, he says, you have a nice sunny day, just an inch or so to cut off. He says they work better, good as anything. He says, but if you miss the cycle and the grass is a little longer, or if it's wet, he says, then they're still dependent on using motorized vehicles to cut the grass and keep up on things. And those are the things that you need to consider, that to go totally electric for the town is going to take some planning, and maybe the technology isn't really up to where it should be. But it was a great Mass Municipal Conference. The other thing I went to was on community policing, and they talked about what they call the Memphis method, which was where they trained the police specially to handle mental health cases. So it obviously wasn't a unit that is in a lot of trouble, but there was that unit, and then there's ones where. So that's the police are trained. The other is where they ride with a licensed social worker is involved with it. And the police chief from Pittsfield was saying that he's hired one social worker and he's going to hire a second social worker, and they ride along with the police. The next method is where you have just a licensed clinician, maybe not even a licensed clinician, but you have another lower level of clinician. And then the fourth level is where you have people who were just trained, and they are unarmed, but they have badges, like police. And in Amherst, they have a program that does that. And it changes things when you have an unarmed officer show up. And so we'll hear more about that. But the other thing that was interesting is he said that when they had a social worker in the police department, he said that they help process a lot of different things. Like the officers kind of seek out the social worker to talk about job stress. And, most police officers, or most police departments have like a staff psychologist and so everything, but people don't always want to go to talk to them. It's hard to get them to go to the EAP. And when we look at stress that officers feel on the job, it could be like really high. They get back to the station, someone was just trying to kill them, and then their commanding officer, I don't know if it is Long Meadow, but I know in other cases, they say, so you okay? And they go, yeah. And that's it. That's the whole debrief. So having, mental health professionals involved with policing is a positive thing for the community and for the officers, which I thought was a great presentation that they had.
Well, thanks you both for attending and for bringing back reports. It's helpful to learn new things like that. Anything for you, Dan? Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So, excuse me. So, over the past couple of days, I've had a lot of residents reach out to me regarding the closure of the Bay State Health Urgent Care Center. I'm not sure what this board can exactly do in terms of maybe working with the landlord or the shops, but it's going to be the people leaving the building. It's obviously a medical facility, right, where they have laid out as a medical facility. So I don't know if there's anything this board can do, but I know a lot of folks have benefited from using this facility as a resource for in times of need. I've actually had to use it myself for a bee sting last year. So anyways, I just wanted to call it out because a lot of people have reached out to me on this issue. I've been in contact with Bay State Health, former Senator Mike Knappich, who is the government relations director at Bay State. I know some communities like Agawam, they're looking at privatization opportunities with maybe MedExpress or some of the AFC medical urgent care groups that are out there. So again, I don't know what the board can do, but I've been in contact with a lot of people, and I would like to see what we might be able to do to potentially work with another private entity that might enter. So I just wanted to put it out there.
And I've heard people on that as well. This is, from what I heard, it's a staffing issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, if anything, we can do about that. Unfortunately, I think the medical field is something that we, as a town, are not qualified to enter into.
Sure.
It's not something I would want to touch. But if there is anything we can do, it's certainly something to consider. But I would be wary of doing too much. But it is a shame, and I hope that somebody else can take it over. But the staffing is, it's a lot of nurses and PAs there, and staffing is a real tough issue in that sector, unfortunately. But thank you for bringing that up, Dan. Anything else from the board? All right, moving on to town manager's report.
Thank you. I have an update on Wolf Swamp Athletic Fields. Bids are due next week for construction of the flagpole and dugouts. Those were funded through Community Preservation Act funding, with construction scheduled to be completed in April. The bleachers had been ordered and were delivered, they were ordered and they are expected to be delivered by the end of this month. That was paid for through ARPA funding. Painting and the installation of ADA toilets will be done inside the Edgerly building in the coming weeks. Additional ADA portable toilet units will be added outside in the spring. A storage unit will be ordered to go on the edge of the driveway to store equipment. This is the same area where a large tree fell, and it's remaining there if anybody's been out there. But this area is scheduled for chainsaw training by the DPW, so they're going to receive training and also clean the tree up while they're there. Then the storage unit will be delivered. Benches and tables, both ADA compliant, have been ordered and delivered, and they'll be installed as we get closer to spring. And a bid for maintenance of the field is out right now to cover mowing, irrigation, and fertilization for this first year. Job openings for facilities attendants have been advertised, and we are hearing a lot of excitement for the spring season, as I'm sure you are as well. And then regarding Westcom, Westcom have hired an architect and project manager, and they've been on site at Salter College. They're taking measurements and preparing final design documents that can be put out to bid for the construction. At the current location in the Chicopee Police Department, Westcom cannot add any more communities. However, Westcom is planning a regional meeting with local officials to inform them on the benefits of joining. The meeting is scheduled for March. The onboarding process for a community can be lengthy, so we plan to keep those conversations going while we work on building construction, so we'll be ready to accept new communities as soon as the building opens. And that concludes my report for tonight.
So the maintenance of the field for Wolf Swamp, the first year outsourced, and the plan is to completely bring it in the second year, if possible?
Depends on how the first year goes,
Okay.
and depends on some other capacity situations at the DPW. But for the first year, we felt it was important to have an outside company just solely be responsible for that.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just a couple of questions, Lynn. One was, you had commented, and I also read, I think in Barry, or maybe I saw the note that went out for looking for monitors for Wolf Swamp Fields. Why? I mean, we've never done that before. What's the rationale
Right.
behind that, and how's that going to work?
Right. So from what I understand, maybe years and years ago, probably a dozen years ago, there were positions similar to this at Bliss. I think it's Bliss. So it was an old job description that was brushed up. This is to maintain the concession stand, clean the bathrooms, make sure that trash is picked up off the grounds, and also just in the vicinity of the concession stands as well. This is a pilot year to see how this goes. This was brought to me from the Parks and Rec Department, concerned that the fields were going to be so heavily used that we really wanted to make sure that we had eyes there, making sure things were being properly looked after and maintained.
It's going to be great. I just read it, and somewhere I had read it differently. It's going to be somebody like checking IDs before people got on the
No.
field. Or something.
They will be checking permits to make sure you have
Okay.
the proper permits to use the facility, because it's already fairly scheduled out for this spring season.
That's fine. Couple other questions. I saw, I think in the DPW report, that there was a discussion about the raised crosswalk at Williams and Grassy Gutter.
Mhm.
That's been kind of a, you either love it or hate it kind of situation. Is there any more that you can talk about, or is that something we'll just wait to see what the DPW comes up with?
It's a little bit of both. We have been informed by MassDOT that the raised crosswalk there does not meet standards, and they would like us to fix it. We had a claims adjuster on his way out to look at something that was under review at the DPW, and he damaged his vehicle on that crosswalk on his way here. So that came after the MassDOT notice,
Okay.
at least. So it is
We
something.
damaged an ambulance. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. It is something that is on our radar at the DPW, and they are looking at what possible fixes could be made relatively inexpensively, while also making sure that safety is still, the first priority.
For what it's worth, I'm on the side that says it needs to be altered, so don't worry about that. No, the last thing is, I just wanted to make a comment that at our last town meeting, the town approved the hiring of code enforcement officers, and it was good to read in the building department's monthly report that they've been active and they're working hard to enforce our bylaws, so that's great.
Absolutely. Are we hearing a lot of complaints coming in, or are they fielding a lot of more calls now?
They're definitely fielding a lot more calls. I wouldn't say that complaints have increased, but they're more proactive. So that has been one of the biggest benefits that we knew would hopefully happen. But it's already happening. They're going out and proactively picking up signs, or calling the organizations and saying, we're giving you so many hours or days to pick up your sign, otherwise we're going to take it. They are providing education to people before complaints come in, which has been, I think, the biggest benefit. Most people just aren't aware that they're in violation of a bylaw.
What vehicles are they using now?
They use the building department vehicle or the health inspector vehicle. So there's an old police interceptor that has been repurposed for the building department, and then the building department's inspection vehicle was repurposed for the health department. That's that blue sedan that you see.
Okay.
But in the FY24 capital plan, there is it survived the capital planning process. It is a request for an electric vehicle for code enforcement.
That's what
So
I was
this,
asking. I
yeah,
was curious.
this would be our first electric vehicle in the town's fleet.
Speaking of which, there was a thing, I think it was in one of our workshops, that towns can now take advantage of tax credits that would normally only be good for people
Oh,
who
so
pay
you
taxes,
get the
but,
$7,000 back?
yeah, somehow the town gets the $7,000 back.
Oh,
great.
with the purchase.
With the purchase,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
which is great, because up till now,
Yeah.
if you don't pay taxes, you didn't get any
Interesting.
benefit, but yeah.
That's great. Tom?
Well, as far as the hump at Grassy Gutter that is, doesn't meet, appropriate conditions, I think that was a 3-2 decision, right? Of the select board in the past. I mean, Mark and I, we got outvoted.
Don't get me started.
Because we said,
There's a lot
we gotta put money into, start a funding process to have that thing reduced, and at that time, there wasn't the support. But we did the best we could, and I think, hopefully we get that straightened out. The other thing is, I noticed in the Department of Police, the police department, they're saying, they just lost someone to the FBI, which is, means that we have a good police officer, good police department. They want to hire our folks, but they have a shortage of staff, and maybe this is the time to hire a social worker. Maybe we could mention that to the police chief, and he could talk to the chief of police in Pittsfield, because they have that, they've started that, and maybe it would be a pilot program, and just try it for a year. If they're going to have that much trouble finding somebody anyways. And this person, he would explain how they ride along, they help the officers understand mental health crises, and because, I know our officers do a lot of, just public service, and so having someone along who has that training could be a very valuable tool, so.
We've got a couple minutes until the public hearing. Do we have anything else on the monthly reports?
Oh, but if you want to jump ahead, we can do some.
Old business, at least?
Yeah, I'll move we approve the minutes of the February 6th Select Board meeting as sent out, version 2, I guess, after the types of typos.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention.
Okay. I was trying to remember.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that one.
I guess we can we can wait a minute till 7:30. Jason, why don't you come up in the meantime?
He doesn't mind, we don't mind, as long as everybody's here.
No, there's nobody, that's true. Mike, is there anybody here to? All right.
Not that I see.
Okay, I'll take a motion to enter public hearing.
So move.
And a second?
Second,
All right,
yeah.
any further discussion? All those in favor? Hi, Jason.
How you doing?
Great, thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight. What
Yeah,
are you-
thanks for having me.
What are we doing?
So we're looking to move to the next step of adding a patio to the outside of the building, adjacent to the building for our brewery. We went to, before the planning board, got all the approvals there, and now we're looking to amend our liquor permit. So we're here to see you guys.
Okay, I had a few questions on this. And also, if we have Walter here and Corinne, if one of you wants to explain what went before the planning board, just so we're clear on that.
There was a,
Will you come up to the
Yes.
microphone?
so there was a site and design review waiver revision request that Jason put forward. And 2 meetings ago, so that was the meeting in January, December. And the planning board sent notification to abutters, a requested notification was sent to abutters as part of the waiver request. The revision of the waiver was to install a shipping container as the still temporary, in that it's movable, but structure as opposed to a tent on the patio. Everything else was the same as the original application. And last month, the planning board, or this month, February 6th, the planning board voted to approve the waiver.
Correct.
All right, thanks, Corinne. So I had a few questions on the application. So your lease, you're now leasing this part of the parking lot, is that correct?
So in our original lease agreement with the owner of the building, we asked to have the opportunity to create a patio outside if we ever got to that point. So it's in our original lease that we may use that area for a patio. And then I additionally got a letter from them recently just saying that nothing's changed and they still approve the plan to have a patio on the side.
Okay, and how will you be enforcing age limits on the patio?
It'd be the same way that we do inside the brewery. We'll card everybody that is purchasing beer, and we'll be, checking everybody to make sure they're not drinking if they're not of age.
And have you had any violations since you were granted your license?
We have not. We're pretty good about I think the one great thing about a brewery is it's a different kind of crowd. I don't think there's a lot of people trying to push the limits at these small breweries. So, we've been pretty fortunate. We card pretty much, try to card most people that come in and make sure, and we've been pretty good so far.
Keep guarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this is the first liquor license modification or liquor license facility that I've been familiar with where the request is for a serving location, in your case a pad, that's not contiguous with the store. In other words, between you and this, there's another store, there's a public way, if you will. It's,
Right.
I mean, it's private facility, the shopping center. How do you plan on managing that non-contiguous nature of having, you're going to have people go back and forth? So I guess at some point, I don't know, are you not going to have to bring liquor to this facility because it's already going to be in the, can you tell me how you're going to manage that
Yeah.
it's not contiguous?
So our goal is to kind of manage it in 2 different ways. For times that we don't have the outside shipping container bar open, we would have a server that would come out and bring beers to the container. So there would be always an employee bringing it from one location to another, and no customers would be outside of those areas with beer. And when times call for it, we'll have the outdoor bar open, and there'll be a server there. So that's kind of the plan.
And I haven't seen I did get it today, but I haven't read the whole thing from the planning board. Will you plan on posting any kind of notice at this patio that says, beer cannot be removed or moved beyond this area, or will there be signage, or is that a requirement of the planning board, that there be signage that says that?
That wasn't a requirement of theirs, but we have no problem doing so. We
I
have,
think that would be our requirement.
Okay.
yeah, and I think that we would probably do that whether you guys required us to or not. I mean, it's in our best interest to make sure that people are staying in the areas where they're supposed to be. I mean, we're really really good about enforcing that now. We don't allow anybody outside of the tap room, and people have tried to order from Frankie's and then come over and get a beer and then try to go back, and we don't allow that. So we make sure that everybody stays in the building where they're supposed to, and we take it serious.
I did a golf course license, and the license area was the golf course and the club, and there were signs on either side of a path in between that said you can't cross. And that was a requirement of the board. So if that's something we want to do, we can certainly do that. We don't want people walking back and forth. I think that is, so if you have the server and people are served there, having a sign at the fence and inside the door, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, and we planned on that anyway. That's part of our,
Okay.
and pretty fortunate. My business partner owns a printing company, so we have a lot of signs.
We've seen the signs.
that kind of direct people. It just makes things easy when people understand what the rules are. So and if you followed us or came into our beer garden at Fall Festival, you could see that we had a large sandwich board in the beginning with a bunch of rules on it. So we're very into making sure that people are following the rules and creating easier time for us.
So, will you have tap lines outside, or are they coming through the building?
There will be tap lines outside, and that's one of the things that, the shipping container just made more sense.
So you can secure it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we kind of, I was thinking about it, originally we were thinking about doing a pergola type area, and then I was like, how are we gonna keep the honest people honest and keep, kids when the place is closed at night from jumping the fence and trying to go where the beer is. So we figured having, a shipping container, once we get to that stage where we have that built and have beer outside, that it's just more secure, and we can lock it up at night and just keep people from.
Tom, do you have a question?
Well, so I understand, when people pay for the beer, they'll play in your resident, you'll play in the store, not here, and then the beer will be served outside.
Well, it could happen a couple different ways, Tom. If we have a server, then they'll come out and we have a portable device that they can pay from. So they could be sitting there, order there, and pay right outside. Or they could come in and order a beer. But if they do that, then one of our staff will have to take it out to them.
All right. Well, the reason I'm asking the question is just because, we just had a bank robbed in town, So, I mean, if there was a lot of cash in one location outside of your main building that wasn't in a cash register or something, that we'd have to, I'd want you to be aware that's a safety risk, because then our police officers would have to respond to something like that. So anything you can do to sort of keep the cash in the place it is now, and then have maybe a portable way for people to pay with a card or something, just so there isn't a collection of money in that other location where someone could just, there are desperate people,
No, absolutely, and I think that all goes back to the security of the shipping container, right? So like that, that anytime you can, do things to make things secure and keep people from thinking about doing something they shouldn't, it's always a good thing, and I think that's kind of the thought process of having that. Yeah, we will have procedures in place for payments. Most likely, it'll be all card transactions outside, and then if you have to pay in cash, it will be done inside and brought back. The change will be brought back to the
That'd be great,
person.
because when I was a kid, people used to rob buses, believe it or not, because buses would give change, And so they just get out, rob the bus and leave. And then as soon as they had, it's all the money went into this thing underneath the floor of the bus, no more bus rob,
Right.
no robbery ever again.
Right.
Like one of the best things. And so if you plan this accurately, you shouldn't have any trouble like that. And, we want to see you have a successful business and,
Yeah. And it's not just Zach and I that work there. We do have bartenders that work for us, or beer tenders, as we like to call them, because all we serve is beer. And, their safety is paramount to us, So
Yeah.
we'll definitely do things that will keep them safe and make sure that, that stuff is being taken care of. And I know we're right on the Enfield line, but I feel like it's safe over there. We're good.
Yeah. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter. You can be right on Route 5.
Dan?
Thanks. I agree with what everyone's saying and asking questions. I know firsthand, just going there, you guys are always carding, and you have great beer, you have a great product. It's a great place to go, and congratulations, really, on the expansion.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I think it's something that is not just going to benefit us. I think that, it will also benefit Frankie's, Lee's Brothers, because, we've been pretty good about allowing, their patrons to come into our tap room with their food and eat there. And, so this will be another area for people to maybe go grab a slice and hang out and eat outside, And I think that if one thing, good came out of COVID, is that, people really enjoy eating outdoors. So this gives an opportunity for people to kind of experience that, and just to give it another atmosphere, for people to enjoy, our tap room and our product and what we have. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a great little addition, and hope you guys feel the same.
And I can't take my lawyer hat off. Depending on which inspector you get from the ABCC, they may ask for bank statements for the $5,000.
Sure.
And I would also attach a copy of the lease showing you have the right to that property, because that one doesn't come up as much. The money always comes up. But,
Sure.
If you have the lease or the letter, I think that would be a smart thing to attach.
And I apologize for not, sending that through with my application. I just thought that stuff would carry over from the planning board. So that is my fault. I apologize for that.
Yeah, whatever
Otherwise-
Mike has, that will be the package that gets shipped to the ABCC if we approve.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, this is just internally. My recollection, I may be wrong, was that we didn't have to, or weren't asked to, weren't required to approve the original license because it was done under the agricultural exemption or some system from the
There's a
That was for
brewer's permit.
That was for brewing of the beer, but for the tap room, the
Right.
local licensing authority has to.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So yeah, Mark, originally when we were retail sales only, that just falls under the state guidelines. But then once we actually started serving on premises, that's when you guys reviewed us.
All right, thanks.
Okay, anything else from the board in public hearing?
I'll move we close the hearing.
Second.
All right, anything further? All those in favor? Okay, Mike, did everything in order?
Yeah, the only thing I had
on
on my radar was your point that you exactly brought up with the proof of financials. They will request that if I submit the application as is, so
Sure.
we might as well get that in before we even submit it, because it's going to be a request of them anyway. So I have an email drafted, ready to go to you about that, and then there was something else we just talked about. Oh, the copy of the update. I have the lease, but I don't know if it was an updated lease to include that outdoor space or not. So.
The original does include it, but I will resend it to you along with the recent letter that was just done, I think, last month.
Okay.
Because that was a request of the planning board, just to show that, they are still on board with what's going on.
Other than that, everything seemed to be in place.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to make a motion that we approve the expansion of the, serving site for the one-way brewing, contingent upon both the requirements of the planning board and the installation of signs that indicate that alcohol cannot be removed from the patio.
Sure.
Second.
Anything further? All those in favor? All those opposed? All right.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations, Jason.
Appreciate it. And hopefully you guys will come visit when it's open. And
Well, it might be warm enough tomorrow, you never know.
I know,
It's
right?
snow tomorrow.
Well, you never know.
It is New England. I don't like the weather. Wait a minute.
All right,
See you, everybody.
have a good night. Back on to old business, proposed stormwater general bylaw changes. So we've had 2 lengthy discussions on this. Corinne, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Please do.
So attached to your agenda for the meeting tonight, you'll see that there's a final for now memo on the topic. And I found the conversation at the last select board meeting on this topic to be very informative. And in terms of, I have been working on this since June last year, so it's hard to sort of take a step back and look at it without having known everything that's gone into it. And so I think a lot of the questions that came up will be questions that residents will have. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to address the major themes that I heard, which is what's included in the memo. And you'll see attached to the back of the memo, there's actually a updated, revised draft of the one bylaw that was spoken about at length at the last meeting, which was the bylaw governing discharges to the municipal storm drain system. That's the one with the illicit connections. So I'm just going to go over very briefly the contents of the memo, and happy to answer any other questions that come up or any clarifications that need clarifying. And then I do want to just point out the major revision in this new draft of that bylaw. So one of the key items that I think it's important to emphasize with this conversation is that for this particular bylaw, the bylaw governing discharges to the municipal storm drain system, which was the one that was primarily spoken about at the last meeting, the requirements of the original bylaw, so the one that exists now, was voted in around 2008 in the town, are unchanged, both in the draft that was presented 2 meetings ago and in the new draft. There were track changes. Those track changes were there to add clarification and exemplifying, that's not probably the right word, illustrative language, but they were not changing any requirements or adding any new additional requirements. The only totally new item that was added was the specification of what a third offense the fine for a third offense would be. So in the memo, I pulled out 4 major themes that I heard in the conversation at that meeting. So the first is around the topic of prohibited activities. So there was some concern at that meeting that the prohibitive activities would negatively impact homeowners with pre-existing conditions. Again, the original bylaw was voted in 2008 from the 2003 permit. So in that version of the draft bylaw, and just to make sure we're clear, and for everybody who might be watching this later or watching from home now, when you're looking at these drafts, all the black text is existing law in Longmeadow. The only thing that is revised is any colored and underlined text. So those are the track changes. So A, B, and C, which are illicit discharges, illicit connections, and then let me pull out.
Obstruction of municipal storm
Thank you.
drain system.
Yes, is C. So those are really broad categories, and they were already existing. They're in black text. Everything in that previous draft, which was D through F, appeared as new additions because they had the same weight as A, B, and C. But in fact, they were already covered by A, B, and C because A and B prohibit any non-stormwater entrance into the municipal stormwater system. So everything that was in proposed D through F were non-stormwater discharges. So it included like putting leaves in the gutter or putting animal waste in the gutter or solvents in the gutter or in the catch basin. Mm-hmm. So those are already covered by A, which says no pollutants or non-stormwater discharges can go into the catch basins.
Can I ask a question right now while you're on that? I'm surprised the original bylaw didn't mention oil, because was one of the contaminants that used to end up in sewers. People changed their cars, and then they mandated that gas stations need to accept oil, so people didn't do that. But it's missing from this.
So that's exactly why we added D through
Oh,
F.
okay.
And what I realized after the conversation with the select board was that we did it in a confusing way. So that is the primary revision to the bylaw, is that all of those sort of like where we outline no leaves, no pollutants such as oil, such as paint thinners, such as paint, such as dog waste and things like that. Those are all now nested right under A. So it's giving examples of what we mean by non-stormwater discharges, but
Yeah.
it's showing that we're not adding any new requirements. They were already covered. So, and I think oil is certainly covered legally under that, but I think I have called it out as an example
It's
in that
not
as well.
called, it's not, specific, it doesn't say oil.
Oh, it doesn't say oil, okay.
It says other things, solvents,
Would that be hazardous waste?
but it doesn't say, well, I mean, it's just,
Such as.
Yes, such as, but not limited to.
Yeah.
So we can add oil, it's
I
just,
mean,
it's just that it
one
is
of those
already
things that
covered.
historically, that was one of the problems, people were putting oil in this storm sewers.
And it needs to be motor oil, not just.
Motor oil, yeah,
So-
motor oil.
So I can add that as an example to A.
Just so people are clear.
Yep.
They-
So,
Well, if anybody's dumping oil nowadays, I mean, they know they're doing something wrong.
well, yes, and I think that is like, if you sit down and you really read the language, like, I think people do know that they shouldn't be taking their entire bags of yard clippings and throwing them into the catch basins, like that's a problem. But it is worthwhile spelling out the types of examples of what we're talking about, so that, one, we know that we're being very clear, but also if somebody truly doesn't know, it's written down, or something like it is written down.
Are you able to put it in right now, Mike?
I think he has a PDF.
This is just
but
a
I can
PDF.
add
Oh,
it.
okay.
I'll add it, yeah.
Oh, I see, okay.
So we don't want to post the Word documents because then anybody could download them and do things to them. So then the next category was the exemptions. So there was a long conversation about what are we legally allowed under the MS4 permit to exempt. And the example of East Longmeadow was brought up, where they had relatively recently passed, they're an MS4 community as well, they had relatively recently passed their own revised code, and they had a list of exemptions. So our list of exemptions, which is unchanged from the original bylaw, the proposed list of exemptions is unchanged from the original bylaw and is identical to East Longmeadow's. And also attached to this memo, there's a supplement on page 2 that lists every exemption that the MS4 permit allows and what Longmeadow has in our bylaw. And you'll see that we have every single exemption that we're allowed to have, plus a few. So that answers those specific questions about those exemptions. Another topic of conversation that came up was the number of days for compliance. So again, the 14 days, there was concern that there wasn't going to be enough time, reasonably enough time for residents to come into compliance if they had pre-existing conditions. I talked to our town staff about this, and specifically the DPW director and the town engineer, and the decision, I won't say the decision, the recommendation that we came up with was that because the requirements of this bylaw are unchanged from the 2008 version, in which the 14 days was already written in, residents should have already come up to date with this bylaw, and that if we were to extend the number of days for compliance, it would, the DPW director had concern that it would blur his staff's ability to, or right to enforce the bylaw, like existing conditions of the bylaw during that period, and maybe even while we wait for the AG's office to approve the new version. That was one idea of like a trouble that it could make. So because residents should already have come into compliance with this however many years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, that the staff recommendation is that it stays with the 14 days. Lastly, in the memo, there was the topic of enforcement, and there were general questions from both boards about sort of how was it envisioned that this would be enforced. And so I also talked to the DPW about that, and enforcement of much of the existing bylaw in this case, but also with the other general bylaws that we're talking about, were part of the 2008 permit. And so part of that permit, in addition to the 2006 permit, is that there are programmatic elements that the DPW needs to be fulfilling in order to be seen as compliant for enforcement. And so the DPW is already testing for and enforcing this bylaw, the original bylaw. And they do that by various methods, but there's smoke tests and outfall tests to see if there's contaminants coming in from any particular part of the storm sewer system. And if they find that at this outfall they are finding a ton of motor oil, for example, they know that it has to be coming from only a limited number of catch basins that come to that one outfall. And so from there they start to do investigative research, I guess, and they find the source, and then as Sean Van Duzen said at your last meeting, they then work with the culprit, so to speak, to figure out what type of enforcement is necessary in the moment and how to work towards a successful completion. So that's how it would look like in the future as well. The idea of the code enforcement officers was brought up, and I don't know that they have a role with this right now in the way that it is right now. So I think I already talked about how this newest version of the IDD, this particular bylaw, the major change here is that I moved D through G, which was our recommended new language in section 6607, prohibitive activities, to nest under existing section A, illicit discharges, and reworded it to have it be like very clearly illustrative language as opposed to standing out as their own prohibited activities.
Well, Corinne, I think this is really impressive. I think that this process has been exactly how we want to do these things. We're making big changes. You brought it to us. We had 2 meetings on it. You've listened to our questions and have really addressed them, and I think you did a great job on this. So thank you for bringing this again to us tonight.
Thank you. So there's one more thing that I learned today, if I could share that. So there was also a conversation at the previous 2 meetings around timeline of this, and they weren't questions that I or Patty were able to answer in the moment. What I've learned since then, Patty Gambarini attended, reminder, she's our consultant from PVPC who's working on this. She attended a statewide stormwater meeting, of which she's a regular member, just last week. And the EPA permit writer, Newt Tedder, who writes the MS4 permit for Massachusetts, was there. And she asked him some questions about the MS4 permit sets a clear requirement timeline in terms of phased implementation of the permit standards. So 2016 was year 1, and so we're now in year 6. It was held off a little bit, so I think right now we're in year 5 because there were legal stays on the permit. So the code update, which is what we're working on now, was a legal requirement of year 3. So that was 2021 fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021 was year 3. So that's when code revisions were due. Obviously, we had not revised our code. Many other communities hadn't either. Last year, June 30th, 2022, was the end of year 4, and Newt Tedder specified that that was the grace period that EPA had decided to give communities to come up to date. They didn't announce that, I don't think, but they decided to hold off on any enforcement for a year because they wanted communities to be able to do this. So we're now in year 5, and we are definitely out of the grace period. So I know the board still has to decide if this is something you want to put on the warrant for this upcoming town meeting, or hold off for further discussion. I just think that's a relevant piece of information. So.
Has the planning board had their hearing on their section?
That is coming up March 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, Corinne, we've been watching on television about this chemical disaster in Ohio, and we have trains that go through our town, and we have a highway that goes through our town, and most of that stuff would be covered by environmental protection acts and so forth, and Department of Transportation and so forth. But is there anything that we need to learn from that situation that would apply to this sort of bylaw?
I don't think that these either this bylaw or the 2 other ones that are part of the general bylaws that are we're recommending to combine into one that will be governing development and stormwater discharge. I don't think that they apply to emergency situations like that where there's an unplanned spill. Obviously, that leads to, or it could lead to illicit discharges into the storm sewer system, but not by anyone's intention. You will be interested to know, I'm sure it's been announced to the select board previously that we did receive our hazard mitigation update grant for our hazard mitigation plan, and we're in the process of contracting with a consultant to do that. And so over the next 3 years, I believe we have a contract to be updating that process, which will involve a public component and a core team, including led by the town engineer and the emergency management director, to take a look at exactly items like that. What do we do if there's, how do we network to understand what hazardous chemicals are coming through on the Amtrak lines or on 91 or on Route 5? What are our, what are the protocols if there's a spill close to schools, et cetera. So while it's not part of this project, it is something that we're working on.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think having dissected this several times, it's probably worth having to go for this, based on the schedule and other things, go in the spring budget, the spring annual town meeting.
I think you mentioned it before. I can't think of anything that's going to change for the fall. I think that's a great point. And we've spent a lot of time on this, and I feel comfortable with it. So, again, kudos to you, Corinne, on that. Anything else from the rest of the board?
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, under new business, we have a liquor license amendment application from Max Burger.
I'll move we approve the change of, I think it's change of manager for Max Burger's liquor license.
Second.
I think it's the change of, it's a LLC, right, Mike? Change of officers?
Yep.
Just I want to make sure we're getting it right.
I also have a representative from Max Berger from Fitzgerald Law in the chat, right, in the Zoom right now,
Why don't you
too.
put him on this? That's what happened.
Hello.
Hi,
You guys hear me okay?
yes,
Yeah.
who do we have today?
This is Attorney Rachel Fancy from Fitzgerald Law PC. I'm here on behalf of Max Berger Longmeadow, doing business as Max Berger.
Hi, Rachel. Can you explain what we're voting on tonight?
So essentially about a year ago, you guys approved a change of ownership structure where Max Hospitality took over the ownership of Max Berger, just to clean up, the varying member holders. Max Hospitality does not have a manager. It's a solo member LLC, and they are the sole member of Max Berger Longmeadow LLC. And so essentially what we have to do is kind of clean up house with the ABCC and just change that there is no LLC manager for Max Berger. It is just a sole member, which is Max Hospitality. The licensed manager is staying the same. There's no operational changes that are happening to Max Berger. The only thing that's changing is the LLC manager on the license is going to be removed because Max Hospitality is the owner of Max Berger Longmeadow.
All right, thank you for clearing that up. All right, that being said, any questions?
So it is a change of the manager, technically.
Well, it's a change of the management structure, or the ownership structure,
Yes.
removing a manager. I know it's just in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So if we'll have a motion to accept the, no, I can't even say it, a motion to accept or approve the Max Berger change of officers application.
So moved.
Second.
All right, anything further? All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you, Attorney Fancy, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Okay, moving on to the Capital Planning Committee fiscal year 2024 capital plan recommendation.
All right, moving in, Chair of the Committee, Stephen Metz, Dr. Metz.
Steve, you're still on mute. Oh,
It should be good now.
There we go, maybe. This modern technology for us old folks. I thank the panel very much for allowing me to present the committee's recommendations for the capital budget for fiscal year 2004. I had submitted a written testimony, which, thanks to Mr. Gold, has gotten cleaned up. A couple of things that I think is available to all of you. There are a couple of things I wanted to bring up. The funds available to us, as we were informed by the town manager, is that our capital budget for funds total $2,357,496. We received comments from the town manager, director of the Department of Public Works, chief of the fire department, and interested town residents. As has been our policy in the past, the committee several years ago established several criteria for our evaluation in order of importance. First major criteria that we would look at is it mandated by law or regulation? Does it address a safety issue? Does it promote efficiency in town operations? Does it improve the quality of life of the residents? And the last things we look at, or the last criteria for evaluation is, does it improve its aesthetics? And I appended Appendix A that gives the recommendation in detail. The total cost of a recommended budget is $2,350,000, or $47,000 less than we were told we had available. I do want to mention a couple of specific areas. The initial request by the town manager was for a category regarding administrative and project development funding. It's our belief that the administrative portion of that funding really is a operational expense and not really capital expense. We do recognize the importance of product engineering and development so that we can present a much more knowledgeable idea of what the expected cost may be. We already have a small category called project development for that purpose, but that is very much out of date. So we recommended that the two categories be combined into one project development fund for $100,000. Just a second. I got knocked down here. The one that caused the most conversation and discussion was a request for an upgrade of the elementary school playgrounds in all three schools to meet ADA standards. The current estimated cost of the project originally was a little over $1 million, but that's increased after further evaluation to $1.9 million. As I understand from the Community Preservation Chair, Community Preservation Committee has approved $550,000 as part of the project funding. We had initially been asked to provide another $555,000, but that would leave $800,000 unfunded. Potential sources of funds to address this were discussed at length. The town manager and head Department of Public Works informed us that addressing the project by dividing it into 3 stages, addressing one school per year, would increase the cost and incur the risk of charges of ADA noncompliance. When we discussed the possible supplementary funds that might be available, the town manager informed us that several grants are available for funding of the playground upgrades, and she plans to submit applications once the project is approved. this not be successful, there are funds allocated for other town projects proposed but not begun, including ARPA funds, which will provide us sufficient complementary funding. There was also a commitment from the head Department of Public Works to monitor and provide temporary patches to sidewalks and roads by our funds available to him, which was a concern of the committee that section of the capital budget be addressed appropriately. The committee wishes to thank the town manager and all who provided comments regarding the proposed capital projects. And I would certainly welcome any questions or comments.
All right, thank you, Dr. Metz, appreciate it. Mark, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Dr. Metz, can you go back and give us another sentence or two, just because I want to make clear the difference of what you considered that $25,000 additional project development costs and why you deleted it?
The project development is something that we've included for years. But the times have passed, and we recognize that the cost of project development before submission of preliminary request has risen significantly. However, the initial request from the town manager was that we have a separate category for administrative and project administration in town project development. We decided to change the categorization. We think that administrative costs should be part of the operational expenses because it really is covering some of the ordinary services of the DPW. But we didn't want to decrease the project development funds overly, and so we included the original $25,000 that we had used in the past with $75,000 from the $100,000 that the town manager had asked for, so that the administrative costs are referred back as operational expenses, and we have increased the amount. Well, we've kept the amount given to project development essentially the same, moving the $25,000 from the top line down to the entry for the DPW.
Josh, can I just follow up?
Lynn, please.
Lynn, Mike, can you just go back, or I guess whoever's running that spreadsheet, is it you, Mike? The top line there that says project development, there's $25,000 that says requested, but recommended is $100,000 for funding. So Lynn, you're saying that what your request was actually for 100 plus 25 to be $125,000 rather than
No, it's 100,000. It's 100,000. Excuse me for talking over you.
That's all right.
Our final recommendation for a project development fund was $100,000. We thought that the administrative portion of the original request from the town manager was more appropriately referred to as administrative costs and operational funding. So we took $25,000 out of that so we could give the DPW $100,000 for project development.
Thank you, Dr. Metz. But Lynn, you would add that as originally as 100 plus the 25 that they previously did. Is that correct?
That was what the town manager had requested. But the $100,000 also included the administrative expense as she submitted it. And we took that part out. So the net recommendation for project development is $100,000.
So just to add a little bit of clarity there and back up just a second, DPW had submitted a request for engineering funding, a separate line item for, excuse me, $225,000. In the capital plan that I prepared, I could not afford to include that entire amount. So I recommended $100,000. It was a new line item called General Administration and Engineering Funding under Facilities. In conversations over the last 2 months with Capital Planning Committee, they felt that that money should be consolidated with the project development funding, which makes complete sense, but they did not agree with the same amount that I had suggested. So they had, their recommendation was to consolidate project development and the engineering funding and reduce those lines by 25,000. So the total amount, instead of 125 by consolidating those, would be 100,000.
Okay, so Lynn, your request was 25,000 for product development and 100,000 for engineering.
Yes.
And they combined it to get, and ended up with $100,000 for project development / engineering.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I
I get
interject
it.
here just for a second? In the comments from the DPW and the town manager, it was, they agreed with us that the administrative, at least is my understanding, that the administrative part of this was operational. It was not part of the project development. They were kind of lumping everything together to help with their budgeting. But we really feel very strongly that administrative costs should be under operational expenses rather than a line item for project development, which we believe should be directed towards specific projects that they're proposing.
So Dr. Metz, how did you define administrative costs, and how were those broken out in the request of $100,000 for engineering?
The $100,000 is for engineering for specifically for project development.
Right, but you're
So
saying,
that'll be the total amount that we recommended. We do not believe that administrative costs, in other words,
right, but you, can I, wait, say, but
memos back and forth and preparing documents.
But you're not hearing my question. My question is, the $100,000 that's for engineering development, that was requested, okay? That you combined with $25,000 of project development and put them together to $100,000 total, okay? You said that because, you did that because there's $25,000 of administrative costs that don't belong in capital, belong in operating budget. How did you come up with that number of $25,000 of administrative costs? Was it broken out in something that was submitted to you?
No.
So where did that come up? Where did that come from?
The original request was for $125,000 for combined administrative costs and project development. We do not believe that administrative costs are operational. This was a attempt to separate the two. If obviously, if you folks with the advice of the town manager decide that more money is needed for administrative costs, you have every right to and obligation to make that change.
I hear you, Dr. Metz. I agree with you that administrative costs aren't capital. What I don't understand is how it was determined that $25,000 was administrative costs. Is that an estimate, or that's what I'm saying? Did the DPW say we need $125,000, of which $25,000 is administrative and $75,000 is actual engineering, or did they just say we need $100,000 for both engineering and administrative, and you folks combined that with $25,000 that was already in the product development, your prior project development, and said we're going to take out 20? I'm just trying to figure out how that amount was determined. That's all.
The $25,000 was a number that we had discussed with DPW head, and he said, yeah, it sounds like it might work, but
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Thank you.
There's no specific calculation.
Thank you.
Well, the original DPW ask was $225,000, so $25,000 of that was administration, and there's still $100,000 in the, go ahead.
So just to clarify, general administration doesn't mean we're paying an admin at DPW to do this. This means oversight of a project that's happening. So for example, we typically pay engineers, whether it's outside contracts or sometimes it's internal, we have capacity to do it, to oversee work that's taking place in public buildings or on public land, to make sure that it's being done according to spec. When you don't do that, you have errors that can occur that can cost us money later on down the road, and we're uncovering some of that now. If the phrase general administration is hanging this up, it can be struck out of there. It's not
It's
in
already
theirs.
struck out,
Yeah,
yeah.
but in mine, it says general administration and engineering funding, because that's just how a project gets carried out. It does not mean we are paying internal staff salaries with capital funding.
And Dr. Metz, I have another question. The 25,000 aside, if that 25,000 is allocated up to project development, there's still about $12,500 that hasn't been allocated out of the available funds. Is there a reason? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I was listening, I was agreeing with what you just said.
Is there a reason that it was not allocated?
There's nothing to be allocated to.
Well, we can go to project reserve.
No. Or we can use the Richard Foster process and put more into streets and roads or sidewalks and
Well,
guardrails. I mean, money never went to us before.
That was what we were kind of thinking of where it would be applied, but we weren't asked for a specific item to take those. Our preference would be this would go to town-wide projects that are not specifically for schools.
Why is that?
Was that a question to me?
Yes.
I have had the pleasure of speaking with many people who have tripped on the sidewalks in this town.
You know.
I hear that all the time.
So that's why we decided to try to allocate a little bit more money to that particular category.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, Dr. Metz, I just wanted to thank you and the Capital Planning Committee for all your work. Very thorough job here. The question I have is there's a lot of sewer-related projects that are, look like they're going to have...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that word.
Pardon?
I didn't hear what you just said, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, first I said...
You mean about the sewers you were talking about?
Yes, the sewer projects, there's a number of them here listed for like, pumps, motor replacement, Emerson Pump Station and different things. And at the end, it says SEF, which is the Sewer Enterprise Fund, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and,
We have no control over that, that's through the town manager.
oh, okay, that wasn't the committee's decision? No.
Correct. They only recommend allocations,
Okay.
appropriations from the general capital fund.
All right, so then I guess my question is for Lynn, I mean, do we have that kind of money in this?
The answer
So if
is
you're
yes.
asking about Emerson Road Pump Station, that was one that was done in prior fiscal years.
So
prior
what you're
capital
looking
plans.
at, Tom,
The-
was the original thing from 2012.
Yeah,
that
okay,
would-
I kept seeing
That's why I sent
2012.
Dr. Metz, it got
Oh.
screwed up. Don't look at that. Look at that. that's all I can tell you.
Where's
Yes,
where's
so-
that?
so-
Is that,
That's the.
That's
the-
the other
not a-
attachment.
That's another, you,
it was an
that's the
attachment?
one he sent out Saturday or Sunday.
Okay, all right. All
So
right.
there are no projects,
There are no-
infrastructure projects this year in the water, sewer, or stormwater areas for capital funding. The only area we're proposing to fund through sewer enterprise is the jet truck replacement. And that
Okay.
will come to you, it comes to you through rate setting, essentially.
Okay, at that, all right. All right, well, thanks, that's the only thing I was wondering about.
When you say it comes through rate setting, but in fact, town meeting appropriates it through
Yes.
our capital system,
Mhm.
because it's capital coming out of
That too,
Uh,
yes.
an enterprise fund.
Mhm.
Okay. Josh, if I could, I mean, I have a lot of, I don't have any questions, and Dr. Metz, I think you did a great job. My only comments are, for the first time, we didn't see anything about guardrail replacement. And also, when we have streets and sidewalks as they are, I think during the budgeting process, we may find very good use for that $42,496 that's not yet allocated. So if the capital planning committee doesn't mind, the select board may look to move that into one of those road paving, sidewalk replacement, or maybe guardrail categories when we go through the budgeting process. But for now, I think we should accept this report and then move forward and look at that, because we got to look at this whole thing in its entirety, because very frankly, and I know people don't like to hear this, but when it comes down to it, we may be able to, and sometimes we have in the past, used capital to help balance the operating budget by reducing the amount of capital, by cutting into the recommendations of the capital planning committee. And it's not my preference, it's not anybody's preference, but we got to run the town first. And so generally our process has not been to just say, yeah, we accept it and we're going to spend the money exactly this way. But we hear your recommendations. I like your recommendations, but we're going to, reserve the right to tweak them when it comes down to the overall budget. But certainly, for one, I'm going to try to find a use for that other $42,000, because with the rate of inflation, $42,000 in the bank is not nearly as good as putting $42,000 into our roads, sidewalks, or guardrails. So that's my opinion.
Anything else from the rest of the board? All right, Dr. Metz, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and all the time the
Great
committee
report.
has done.
Great report, thank you.
Thank you, fellas. Good luck for the rest of the evening.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So Josh, just a comment. In the past, I mean, we can accept it as a report, but I really don't believe we should accept this as the directive for spending, because invariably we've tweaked it so many times during the budget discussions that we end up unvoting what we voted. So that would be my recommendation, just wait.
I wasn't anticipating us taking any action on it tonight. If that's okay with the rest of the board.
Lynn, you okay with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, usually you vote as part of the budget.
Right.
All right, next up, we have draft letters to governor and administration on the Eversource proposed project. And I assume, are we just putting this on tonight, or are we planning on signing it tonight?
It's not really ready for you to sign in terms of, I have to remove the watermark and
Have we fact-checked it?
print it. Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we had, when Lynn first sent me the draft, she said this hasn't been fact-checked, so we should
Yeah.
probably do that.
It was based off memory, but yes, we've done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think if we're not, if anybody has any suggested changes to this, we can send them to Mike or Lynn and put those in. I've made some tweaks. I'm not terribly optimistic. I know we signed it optimistically, which I think is a nice touch, but I don't know what kind of action this could get, but I think it does help to get it. If it lands on somebody's radar, I think it's a good thing to do.
Well, I think people know that there was a whole bunch of people who sat in the governor's office or the State House or the governor's office for 24 hours or something like that. Probably got more attention than our letter will, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we can send a letter with them next time. Okay, so then we have a discussion on special meetings for the fiscal year 2024 budget. Go ahead, Lynn.
So it's varied year over year on how you've handled this, but I will be submitting the FY24 budget to you on March 6th. Some years you've held budget hearings with departments. Some years you've held just one big budget hearing that anyone can come to, and you have departments available if you have specific questions. And I'm just looking for some direction from you, because I've got department heads asking me what they should be prepared for. I know that the meeting on the 6th is a joint meeting with finance, so that they're at the table for the presentation and can ask questions. I think there's a lot of value in having both of you there at the same time. And then March 20th will be the night that you vote on the budget and vote on the warrant. And March 22nd is when finance is holding their public hearing on the budget.
So I had, Lynn asked me these questions, and I said I thought having finance with us for a meeting was a good use of everyone's time. But I wasn't sure on the department meetings, and Mark and Tom, you've been around a lot longer than Dan and I. I wanted to know what you thought had been useful in the past, and what you thought the best way to get to handle this.
Well, I think the useful thing is to schedule several meetings, and it's very nice when we can cancel one, because we say, oh, we already got all that stuff covered. So, I think we just schedule them and then see how it goes, right?
It's just hard personally for me to schedule a bunch of meetings.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that onto my calendar. Not that I can't. I don't know, Katie's probably not watching, but that's tricky. Okay. that's
Yeah, well, it's
good to
just
know.
this, it's just a short period of time. We traditionally have, one meeting a week. Now, we could get paid more. But I don't know if that'll help.
Go ahead, Mark.
So, I have found it useful to be able to hear from department heads about their budgets. The problem is, the joint meeting with the finance committee is not conducive to doing that, is the best way to put that. So I think historically, what we've done is said, look, that's a Monday, what we'll do is take the following Monday, which I guess is I don't know, the
March
14th?
27th?
No,
13th.
the 13th.
Sorry, yeah.
Right, and say, look, we'll try 2 or 3 or whatever it is on that night, and then, if need be, the 20th, we were going to approve the budget, because that's a regularly scheduled select board meeting. I think it'd be, inappropriate to try to hold budget meetings before that. I think, Tom, what you're referring to is like the week of the 13th, we'd schedule something for Monday and Wednesday and end up canceling
Right.
Wednesday or something like that,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I don't have a problem doing that, but generally, they go pretty quickly, and I can already tell you, because historically, it's the DPW and generally the police department that take up most of the time, and the, and finance committee takes up, those are finance department. And, Parks and Rec and all that stuff just flies, even so, all the social service stuff seems to go pretty quickly. So my personal opinion would be for the 13th, to try to put together the 2 or 3 that we really need to look at. But again, not having seen the budget, I don't know what may come up.
So you notice it as a public hearing with everyone, or the department, sorry. So you list all the department heads, and then we can tell.
Well, generally, we do it here, when we get we're gonna get the budget the 6th, correct? That gives us time to go through it. If we have questions, then, the police chief or the Paul Pasturzik or, the head of the Parks and Rec or whoever it is, just say, can you explain to us these budgets and what's going on? And especially if, Lynn, you're gonna be out, and that might be it's just an opportunity for us to make sure we understand any significant changes to the budget. We generally highlight those. Like I said, it's general that we can do that in that first day. I wouldn't ask some of the department heads to be there that we know we're not gonna get to. Like I said, I don't know that, what we need right now, but I suspect that, Gene from the library doesn't need to show up, and, Jim Layden from Adult Center in the past hasn't gotten questioned terribly, but you may be making major changes this year in the Adult Center, and he's adding staff and stuff like that. There may be questions. It's really, we are required by bylaws to hold a public hearing on the budget. And we do that, and nobody shows up. And I'd like to think that nobody shows up because we do a pretty good job at these other sessions getting questions answered. But also, people in the past couple of years didn't show up because it was very difficult to show up. And so these meetings are to some extent in lieu of that public hearing. I mean, we know more about the budget than most of the people do, unless you're coming to talk about something specific. Anyway, so my recommendation would be schedule something on the 13th of March, and with some department heads, and not worry about the 15th. I don't know, Tom, what do you
Would you be okay with that, Tom?
Yeah.
How about,
No,
what do you think, Dan?
Yeah.
Lynn, is it possible to schedule with a couple, it's always better to have people here, but, with the approval to do it remote, is it possible to schedule some of these people to kind of be on standby at home or something, that if we need them,
If you will, if you entertain remote option for this,
well, this is,
absolutely.
it's March, we can still do it in March.
Oh, yeah. I think we should talk about
We
still.
can do it
yeah.
whenever we want to, but we can certainly do it in March.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem at all.
I mean, I just, it's really a shame when we've got department heads sit through an hour and a half of somebody else's budget before they get here for 5 minutes. And
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that's another great example of why I think we need to keep doing it.
But Josh, my experience, we just cannot do this with the joint meeting with the finance committee. We're just gonna,
Oh, no, that would be a circus.
Yeah,
yeah.
you wouldn't have even seen the budget yet.
Right,
right.
Wouldn't even be fair to you to do that.
And just remind me, last year we did not do a department head meeting, right?
No, we did not.
We didn't do much last year at all.
All right, so if everyone's okay with that, I think we'll go ahead and do it on the 13th. If we have it in one night, it could be a marathon session, may not be, but I think that's a good way to do it.
Same time, 7?
Sure.
6 with dinner, and we talk pay raises with them. That sounds great.
7, okay.
You can do it whenever you want.
And then the open session for the community, when will that be?
That's already scheduled, it's on the
Yeah.
calendar.
That's
So,
on-
yeah, the charter requires the finance committee to hold a public hearing, and that's scheduled right now for March 22nd.
March 22nd, okay. A Wednesday?
Yeah, it's Wednesday, and I believe it's here.
Okay, yep.
Okay. And finally, under new business, we have set the special town election warrant for March 7th.
All right, I'll make a motion, we set the town election warrant for March 7th for the election of one select board member for term expiring June 2023.
Second.
Anything further on that? All those in favor? Okay, and then we just have correspondence. Okay. Anything on correspondence? Assume not. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
All right, anything further? All those in favor? All right, good night, everyone, thank you.